Welcome to Construction Champions Podcast, where we are burning the house down and rebuilding it twice a week. I'm your host, Ron Nussbaum, and I am here to help you become the champion that you're meant to be. Along with our amazing guests along the way, we will provide you with the resources, the latest and greatest. You will sit down with disruptors in the construction industry. And my goal from day one has always been to change the mindset around the construction industry. No more where we let the 3% of bad apes dictate the entire reputation of. Welcome back to Construction Champions Podcast. I'm your facilitator, Ron Nussbaum. I'm the founder and CEO of BuilderComs, and it's my job to bring on the leaders, to bring on the disruptors, to bring on people that are willing to challenge the thought process, not just in construction, but in life and everything around it, so you can become the champion that you're meant to be. And today's episode is no different. We got another amazing guest. Mike, it is fantastic to have you here with us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Ron. And I just was telling you before we hit play or record, but I just want to make sure it's captured on the air too, that if you didn't do what you did serving our country, then there's no way that I can do, and all of us here can do what we're doing. So just thank you again for your service. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I'm sure we all also broadcast on Reese Across America Radio, and that is a very veteran audience. So I am sure they are appreciative of that as well. Why don't you tell us about yourself? Introduce yourself to us.
Yeah, I'll talk about me for sure. I was just talking about Reach Across America with a buddy of mine, Mike. He runs the Travis Manion Foundation here locally in St. Augustine, Jacksonville area. So they just finished a 5K, had over 300, almost 350 people come out for the 5K. And they're looking to do some work around with the Reach Across America. So shout out to Mike Horacek here, locally, a good friend of mine. So also a veteran who served our country in the Army. So a little bit about me. My name is Mike Abramowitz, and I'm a dad. I got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and live here in St. Augustine, Florida. Spent 20 years in Florida, about 20 years up in New Jersey, where I'm from. I'm the son of a plumber. My dad is 84 years old, and he still runs his plumbing business today the same way he ran it when I was a kid. So, which means he runs it answering every single phone call himself, and working 6 days a week, grinding and running around like a chicken with his head cut off. So, and he still works 6 days a week to this day, and he's 84. And so I got a chance to learn firsthand what it means to have ambition, work ethic, drive, determination, and enjoy what you do, where you can make a life out of it. So I envy that in him, but at the same time, the life that he has led, he missed a lot of basketball games growing up for me, and he has my kids, his grandkids, and unfortunately, he's only hung out with them maybe a half a dozen times. And my son's 5 and my daughter's 2, and he just works a lot. So that's partially why I'm here, is because I got my engineering degree, and I spent the last 20 years of my life just understanding sales process and systems in the white collar arena. I've trained and worked with over 5,000 people, and responsible for over $20 million in product sales for a company that I spent a lot of time with, and now bringing these white collar systems into the blue collar space. So I can't help my dad. He's a little old. He's 84. He's not ready to change, but I can help my dad 30 years ago. So that's essentially who I help. And I help them build predictability in the business, and help founder lifestyles, so that way they could have a business that doesn't necessarily rely on them.
I love it, man. Like, this is going to be a fantastic conversation. I know some guys that was just with Travis a couple weeks ago, and me and my wife ran a 5K this weekend. So like, it must just be in the air. So I love it, man. This would be a fantastic conversation. I'm going to dive right in there, and I'm going to ask you the $1 million question. And that is, what makes a construction champion?
It's a good question. I listened to a bunch of your episodes, and I was able to hear a lot of responses, and you've had some awesome guests, and I encourage the listener, if you haven't listened to a couple of those other episodes, really check them out. They're really, really great. A lot of great experts here. What I think a construction champion does is they build a great user experience. And when I mean about a user, I think about themselves as the owner. I think about their talent and their team and their technicians and all their staff. And I think about all their prospects and their clients and making sure that they build the business as the leader of the ship, that they're building it where every user involved has an exceptional experience. Everyone is a fan, including the owner. We don't want the hero syndrome where it's like, oh, I'm the best, so therefore I have to do everything. And then it's like this, you know, hypocritical business model where it's like everything relies on me. We don't need martyrdom. You as the owner has a great experience. Your team has a great experience. Every client has a great experience. And we've built a machine that optimizes what it means to be a business owner in America.
I love that perspective because we don't ever talk about the user experience from the owner's perspective in any positive light. Like it's pretty much we know it's going to be a grind. Like we have this end goal, but I don't think or I don't I know like we don't ever really think about what is our experience as the owner of this business really look like. Because and if you don't have that right, how do you give everybody else a great experience?
Yeah, we had in my company that I run called Better Than Rich, we really like to lead with those two principles, which is founder lifestyle and business predictability. Because when we have those two things as the nucleus of our decision making, we at least can help a business owner choose. So some of the, you know, outdoor lighting guys or custom home remodels or the interior designers or some of the people that we work with, these contractors that we work with, we want to make sure that they understand this principle that the business is a vehicle for their life. It's not their life, it's a vehicle for their life. So they started the business for a reason, probably to make money, make ends meet. You know, maybe they want to leave a legacy to their family or their community or whatever their reason was. We want to have founder lifestyle, business predictability, so they can still make sure that they don't become a slave to the business and the business doesn't run them. But sometimes they get so caught up in the day to day that they forget why did they start the business in the first place. And I get it. I mean, my dad, you know, he started out of necessity. He's like, I'm good at something. Let me just do the thing I'm good at. And then that grew into, let me have my wife answer some phone calls. And then let me scoop up some guys by the railroad tracks to help me dig some ditches, right? Like, and it just like evolved into a business, but it actually wasn't, it's not a business because he can't exit it. A business is something you can exit. You could either sell it, you could pass it down to someone, right? This isn't a business. He has a job. And frankly, the business is going to die with him because 50 years of doing the same thing of like, it's just relies on him and it's sad. And I would love to help him, but it's just, and I could go into reasons, Ron, you know, there's no holds bar here of like why, but I'll give you just one little taste as to why. He pays his guys cash on Fridays and drives around town just to pay them cash as an example. Like that's how archaic and old school. Like this is like before checkbooks. Like this is like pretty wild in today's age of 2025 on how to operate a business. It's just so far removed. So he can't even spell CRM. You know, like so. But anyway, I don't want to digress too much. I love my dad, but you know, there's when it comes to business, there's just other things to learn.
Yeah, and I mean, I know there's listeners out there that can relate to your dad because unfortunately, what you're talking about, age in the construction industry doesn't necessarily play a role in those principles because we do a lot of things that are just how they have always been done, doesn't necessarily get questioned, and it's just here we are just operating along and then I forget that exact statistic, but it's very high the number of construction businesses that just go out of business. Not because they were done, not because they didn't have the work, they were just done working and the business is of no value because it's them. And you never truly built anything, but like you said, a very high stressful job that you have all liability and financial risk involved in.
Yeah. And the challenge is there's a disillusionment because the guy like my dad, he's 84, can't take time to visit his grandkids, but yet, you know, he works a lot and he's making good money, but that he's married to it, but he's under a disillusionment that he's going to be able to sell the business. So he thinks that he can get someone to buy his business at some point in time, but he has no Google reviews. He doesn't have assets outside of like his machinery and his trucks. His tools and his equipment, but like there's brand recognition, but like that doesn't, no one wants brand recognition. It isn't, what we really want to do is, I had a great conversation with Patrick Lang, is if we want to exit a business, we're either going to exit it because we die, we're going to exit it because we sell, or we're going to pass it down to our kids. So if we're going to pass it down to our kids, but it's a messy business. So if he passes down, I'm the youngest of 8. So if he passes his business down to one of my siblings, as an example, they're going to mess this shit up. They can't run this business. It's like, how could they plug in? It might last 6 to 12 months. And then it's like, it's going to be kaputs. And then if he tries to sell it, they're going to be like, okay, let's talk about it. What is your client acquisition cost? He's going to say, my what? How much do you spend to acquire a new customer? It's like, I don't know. I just pick up the phone and they call me. It's all word of mouth. I got a good brand. I got a good brand here. It's like, okay, customer acquisition cost. How many repeat customers do you get? Like out of every job that you do? Well, let's start. How many jobs do you do a month? Well, it depends on the month. Okay. How many jobs do you do a year? It depends on the year. What's your average ticket size? I don't know. It depends on who's calling. What types of jobs do you do more of? It depends on what types of jobs I get, right? Like it's like if there's no predictability, again, it's just very reactionary.
So for all listeners out there that are in a position where they are thinking of, they might want to fix this, what's the steps? Because what I think a lot of times what happens is we try to bite too much off at once when we're talking about pretty much reconstructing how you run your business and what it looks like. And I hate this all or nothing mentality that a lot of guys have, where it's like, oh, well, we just got to do everything, but that's not sustainable. But doing nothing is not sustainable. So how do you help them digest this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm glad you asked it, Ron. And we call it the lead domino principle. It's the one thing that if we just tap it down, it can create momentum into a big thing. So for some businesses, that one thing we like to start with is the infrastructure, the business infrastructure, meaning the CRM, the website optimization, the client journey. Those 3 really are the big dominoes that we like to tackle. And I'll go through each of those real quick, just as an overview. So a CRM is a client resource management system. So it's just a database that we can plug every single prospect and client into. So that way that if they buy from us, we can continue to market them to maximize the lifetime value of the client. So we can sell them service agreements, or we can get referrals or reviews, or maybe additional jobs in the future. So we want to have a database that's predictable inside of a CRM, where we could nurture relationships with past clients. Then we also have the people that don't do business with us right away or ever. Those are called prospects. We still want to nurture a relationship with prospects, because those individuals could either A, become a customer eventually, or B, can refer us to other potential customers. So we still want to nurture and add value to them through some sort of automation. And the automation happens inside the CRM. That's emails, text messages. We could even do voicemail drops. So that's the foundation infrastructure of having some sort of CRM. We use Go High Level for this because it's really functional. And every business that we work with, we give them a Go High Level for 12 months and we manage it for them, set it up for them. The second piece is the website being optimized. So that way it works in tandem with the CRM. So if we go to a construction website as an example, what action do we want them to take? So I'll actually ask you, Ron, if a construction champion is listening to the show and someone popped up on, like, a potential customer appeared on a construction champion's website, what do you think the owner wants that potential customer to do?
To book an appointment.
to book an appointment. That would be the goal, right? So if we want them to book an appointment, there's different ways they could book an appointment. They can call an office, they could text a line, they could talk to a chat widget right there on the line. They could fill out a form to book up an appointment right on the calendar. So there's a few different pathways that the customer or a potential customer in this case could book an appointment. We want to make sure the website is optimized so anybody who lands on that website, they can choose their own adventure, and all of those ways are optimized. So that way, if someone does call, well, what happens if it's during working hours or if it's after working hours? Is it optimized to have a speed to lead with that so that user experience is a good experience? We don't want it to wait 18 hours because if someone searches construction in Atlanta, how many construction companies are going to show up, right? So we want to make sure we have a speed to lead ratio. So CRM, web optimization with the automations in there to be able to maximize the relationship with these users. And then the last one is the client journey. And before I go into the client journey, I'll kick it to you to see if there's any like conversation on those first two.
You're talking the right language here, because for one, you build that. If your dad had that database, it would be worth something. Like that by itself is a lot of times what a lot of companies just sell. So like if you spend the time to just even build a customer database, it has value not just to you but to your business as well. And you speed the lead, especially with what you were just talking about, is like how many companies come up. A lot of times for our customers, it's who they can get on the phone first and out to their house is who is probably going to get the job. Like as long as show, as long as it doesn't seem like a con job, that homeowner is probably going to go with the person that gets out there and responds to them the fastest, because there's some trust that's built there. So if you all waiting 18 hours, your lead to close ratio is probably very bad.
And that's why we want to just optimize the experience for the user and build some automations. And it's good to have human interaction. We want to make sure it's a white glove experience because that's important. But there's ways to have human interaction with like videos or text messages or emails or phone calls with an office assistant. But we offshore assistants that kind of jump in after hours. Like there's so many ways to solve the problem. It's just we have to first acknowledge that there is a problem, that if every phone call goes to the owner or if there's not some sort of speed to lead system in place, then that there is a problem there. We potentially are losing 5 to 15 prospects a month depending on site visits and whatnot. So and that's why that optimizing the client journey. And what I mean by a client journey is from someone who is ignorant, they have no idea who you are, all the way through getting informed to who you are, to becoming interested in who you are, being invested in who you are, they do business with you, all the way into becoming a fan of your company. And now they're like telling everyone else about you, and then they're buying more stuff from you. So that's the client journey from ignorant all the way through invested and into becoming a fan. So every one of those phases requires us to really think about how do we want our company to interact with this client at the stage that they're at. So when they're ignorant, we're not going to market to them the same way as if when they already have paid us $50,000 for the job, right? We're going to market to them differently, and we want to meet them where they're at. So those are really the three foundational parts that we like to focus on at Better Than Rich with someone in construction or contractor, because that foundation is what we're really good at. And by having the foundation set up, now we're buying back at least 10 to 20 hours a week off of the owner's plate, depending on how many calls they have coming in, depending on how many, accounts that they have, how many team members they have. So once we have that infrastructure in place, then we could start talking about what's your hiring process look like? If you are, now that you're more organized on the top of your funnel, well, what does your delivery and the fulfillment on the bottom of the funnel look like? Is your crew doing quality work? Do you have SOPs or like standard operating procedures or playbooks or like the definition of done, whatever you want to call it? So that way everyone knows what good work looks like. Do we have that mapped out in our company? No. Well, okay. That's not a problem. We don't need to throw shade. But however, if we want to scale it, so if you did go on vacation you could trust that your crew is going to have quality work, so your reputation isn't compromised. And I'll click on this, Ron, and they'll kick it to you. Why this is important for me is because my son, I mentioned I have a 5-year-old and 2-year-old, but my son, that's 5, he was born at 1 pound 4 ounces. So he was born at 26 weeks. He was due in April, but was born on New Year's Eve. So he was 1 pound. We were in the NICU in the hospital with him for 8.5 months. So for 254 days. And during that time frame, my business at the time was able to run without me and still do 7 figures in sales because I had everything that I just talked about already in place. So why I'm doing what I'm doing right now is so that way people in the trades, they don't have to wait for a circumstance like mine to happen for them to start trying to scramble, or they have to make the hard decision where it's like, sorry, family, I can't be here during a time of crisis. I'm going to have to go work instead. I'd like to give them freedom to be able to choose. They could choose to be at the hospital or they could choose to be in their business, but they at least have the opportunity to choose because they set up strong infrastructure.
Amen to that. I mean, that's what it's all about, is being able to do that. And I think, I mean, automations are another one of those things where it's like people, it's all or nothing. Like, but it's you have to walk a fine line on, there's stuff that needs to be automated and should be automated, and there's stuff that shouldn't. Like your chances of you automating the entire bit in construction, we're talking about construction, the trades area, like it becomes really hard. I run a software company now. My goal is to not automate it all, but to keep it very, like, that's how our the people we serve, how can we get their things figured out the fastest for them? It's typically to not have human involvement. And there's a lot of steps in the construction life cycle of a project that you can do that. Sometimes guys try to automate stuff that can't, like, it just shouldn't be automated. It makes me laugh. It's the same thing as I love the dominoes approach, because that's how you have to tackle this stuff. You have to figure out is how do you start getting that momentum, and what are those tasks that can start to create that?
Yeah. And I, by the way, just want to plug BuilderComs, really fantastic tool. So anybody that's listened to this that hasn't gone and checked out BuilderComs, I really recommend, because it's a great it's almost like, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, seems like a project management tool for your internal team. So that way these guys that are scrambling, like we have guys like my dad who call their crew the night before or send a text message the night before and say, these are the jobs you're going to go to, or the morning of and say, this is where I want you and this is what you need to do. And it's just like, it's a really terrible user experience because the owner is responsible for knowing all this and then dishing it all out. And then their team means they're out of the know for that until the day of or the night before. And then they're with their families and they like may have something come up and they're like, oh, I got to change my plans. I have to wait on you. So it's just like, there's always a bottleneck. It's just really inconsistent. And BuilderCom seems to really have a great platform to solve for some of that chaos, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah, we're built to make sure that your team and your client communication, all the mess, that like that chaos that happens in those conversations, that it's happening instead of not happening, which is typically what creates the chaos. Is there's nowhere to be having these conversations around the project. So thank you for that. I love
Yeah.
that. I have to ask the question, because you came from white collar and now you're working in the blue collar world. What's the hardest thing to help transition from that word into the construction industry or the skilled trades? Because I'm a firm believer that there's nothing different in our businesses than anything else. We just happen to do construction, but we look at it like they're like white collar corporations and construction businesses the same foundation. We just do different things. But for some reason, there's this line drawn in the sand that we are completely different. And that to me just couldn't be any farther from the truth. But I know that I'm out here, I push this mindset change. So I know what, like, it's pushing that ball up the hill. So whenever I have somebody that came from that other word, not necessarily even came from, just has an understanding of that other word, and now this, I just think it's a good opportunity to have that conversation around that.
Sure. I'll kick it with a question here. What do all superheroes have in common except for Iron Man and Batman?
They have a superpower.
That was my response too. The actual answer is that they're all broke and lonely. They don't have families, they don't have time freedom, they're constantly reacting to everything above, they have no money, right? And it's a really funny way of answering the question, but it's true because there's no difference with this hero syndrome that it's like everything has to rely on me. And I see that in the white collar space, I see in the blue collar space, everything has to rely on me. The difference that I feel like with with the blue collar though is they actually did build it themselves in most cases. Like they started like as the technician. They started as the guy doing the thing. And then, like I said, just kind of threw a business together out of almost like circumstance more so than design. So because it evolved into a business, it like morphed into a business. Um, Most of the time they never take a step back to work on the business because they just constantly kept working in it. And that's what's familiar to them. And because it's so familiar to them, they're almost like scared to like let go of that baby because they don't believe that it could run without their hands on it. And that's why that hero syndrome is really something that we want to tackle first. We want to tackle the paradigms of 80%, a couple of frameworks. 80% done by someone else is 100% awesome. Okay. So that's Dan Martell. So that's number one. Number two is we have a 10-80-10 principle from Dan Martell. He has a great book called Buy Back Your Time. 10-80-10. I do the first 10%. So you can see what good looks like. This is what I want it to look like. You do the middle 80% to like finish it or like get it close to finish. And then I'll come back and do the final 10% to clean up whatever mess you left. So I start it, you do the middle, and then I'll finish it. And that middle 80%, we can plug people in to do that middle 80% for us. But that means we just need to do the first 10 really, really well. And we need to do the last 10 really, really well. And then once we can kind of like have those two ends optimized and we also have that middle part optimized, well, now the owner can kind of plug in and do whatever they enjoy most. So it's by choice, it's by choosing. It's not because I have this control issue. It's because this is where the business needs me. And I also get energy from working in that part of the business. Some of these guys like swinging the hammers and turning the wrenches, and that's great. But if they don't like it, then they should be focusing on shaking hands and kissing babies and hanging out with the clients and wheeling deals. If they don't like that, then they need to be, working in their warehouse and like counting inventory or like whatever they love to do. Let's give them a chance to do it by choice, not because they have to.
I love that. And I think that's one of the best ways I've heard it explained when we're talking about separating yourself from the business. And, when you take a step back and you look at it, is a lot of this was just built from nothing. And it becomes really hard for somebody to just say, I need to take a step back from this and let go of this when it has just happened. And for a lot of it just happened because it happened. And the only nucleus we can put together, it's us. And like, if we step away, I'm going to lose this baby that I've created instead of having the opportunity to mature that baby into an adult.
Yeah. And that's why what we do is we trap these guys in a room. I'm in Florida. They come here for 3 days and we spend 25 to 30 hours to build it. When I say build it, build their foundation, the business infrastructure, the CRM, the website, the client journey. We build all of that over the course of those 3 days. So it's done. Where a lot of companies and what we've done in the past is like an hour here, 2 hours here, an hour there, and we piecemeal it. And that became very overwhelming for everyone involved. So we just restructured to say, dedicate 3 days and we will get the foundation laid. And then we're working downhill, and then it's just like maintaining it. So we really like that immersive model. So I really think that more people in the construction space are going to see trends moving in that direction because it allows us to work fast. So it's almost like a war room strategy session, but it's like strategy plus implementation for 25 to 30 hours of like, just let's strategize and get the shit done fast. So that way I could just go back to my business. And the businesses, we mainly specialize in like $3 to $5 million, like lower seven-figure businesses that we're really specialized in, maybe up to 10 million, because those are the problems that we're solving for. Once they get that foundation laid to that 10 million mark, then it's a new set of problems. We could still help them, but it's just a different set of challenges that those companies are dealing with. So we've really found our niche in that like $3 to $5 million range in the contractor construction in the world.
I love that, because that's what it should be. It should be like, we're going to get you here to here, and then I'm going to introduce you to who you need to know to go to the next place. Like, we know where we fit and what we do. And I couldn't agree more with the immersive, like being involved. We rolled out just about a year ago, not even a year, maybe 6-8 months ago, where we're actually come out to you to do integrations, build out the systems around the software, like, because that's the hardest part. And most people don't understand that implementing a piece of software in your business, there has to be some SOPs around it. It's not like you just hand this out. And I read some stuff on, like, it takes your average construction business about 6 to 12 months before they actually start to see value in a piece of software. And I'm like, well, what if we just charged enough to get us out there and pay for us while we're there, and we just do it? And then we're 5 days on the ground with the team implementing the software, and we leave and they're immediately getting value.
Yep.
And that right there is like, that's what our customers want. So I believe like that is what the trend is going to be in construction with anything, any service that anybody is selling into the construction industry. It is about, how do you get to the fastest road of them actually seeing the benefits of using what you do.
Yeah, I love that. And that's why I love what you guys are doing at BuilderComs. And I truly believe that every listener should check it out, because it's a great resource. It's a great tool. Because the bottom of the funnel gets really sloppy, like the client fulfillment. We call it client fulfillment, but it's like doing, what is that? What does it mean in layman's terms? It's like doing the jobs that you guys sell. So you sell the job, and then you have to like fulfill on the job. So I closed it, I bid on it, and I got the bid. Great. Now I have to fulfill on it. I got to actually build the house. I got to build that road, or I got to install that bathroom. Right. So it's like the managing of that project after the point of sale is really critical. And that gets messy, especially if it's a custom build, especially if they're remodels. Some of those jobs can, your listeners to the show. I assume some of those jobs can run a couple of days to a couple of weeks, even a couple of months in a lot of cases. Right.
Oh yeah. And longer. Some stuff takes a year or more.
So to manage a project for that long, and then if you have several projects going on at the same time, and you don't want things to like slip through the cracks, what materials to get, some guy is sick. How do we get the guy's notes from out of his head and into some sort of platform so it gets communicated to the next person who's going to step in, right? This guy has a vacation and we can't like slow the job down because of him. Like, that platform is really critical, and having, especially for those longer term type of jobs, having consistency and predictability. So I know I feel like I'm a spokesperson for your product, but it's a really good tool, and I think people should check it out.
Awesome, man. I love it. And I've loved our conversation here today. This has been fantastic, man. You're hitting grand slams where they need to be hit. So for all of our listeners, if they wanted to connect with you, learn more about what you do, where's the best places for them to do that?
Yeah, if they go to betterthanrich.com/GSD, like get shit done. So betterthanrich.com/GSD, they'll go directly to my calendar, and we will give you the recipe of how to set up your CRM, how to set up your web, like a client journey optimized. Like, we'll create the systems for you, so that way you could just implement them into your business. And we do that for free because the recipe is easy. It's the cooking that costs money, as my friend Phil Risher says, and he was a guest on your show, so that's what he says, and I love that. It's like the recipe, we'll give you the recipe, but if you want to cook for you, that's where we come into play, and that's why a lot of companies will still hire us. They'll invest 60 to 100 grand a year to work with us because we'll move fast, but we're going to give them the recipe for free anyway. So it's like just have a call, no pitch, betterthanrich.com/GSD, and take it all and run with it, because then at some point you're either going to use what we give you for free and thank us and say that was awesome, thank you for all the information, that makes us look good, or you say all the stuff that you gave me is a lot harder to implement than I anticipated. Can we set up a call so you could talk about how you could just do it for me? And then that obviously takes us into the conversion of the sales process, but it's been working really well. And I love having these conversations with these guys in the trades. So betterthanrich.com/GSD. We'd love to give you the recipe on how to optimize your CRM and your web and your client journey, those automations, and just really build that out for you so you can execute it.
Awesome, man. I love it. And that's a really good domain. Like it. The fact that you own that domain is pretty amazing.
Thanks.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you. Thank you for the resources. I 100% agree. You can give anybody the map. You can give them the tours. Very small percentage is actually going to be able to do that or want to go down the road of doing that. I think that's like, you have to decide, is that, do I want to do this by myself? I believe it's always better to have the person that wrote the playbook. Like, though, I guess one of the best ways to put this is like anybody, you can get Ali Tamozi's stuff pretty much for free everywhere. But you can't really hire him anymore. You used to be able to. The difference between reading and implementing his stuff and actually paying him to be in your business and do it day and night. Like it seems almost like make a decision the other way.
Hey, I have a funny one real quick. I don't know if you follow Dave Chappelle, but one of his skits is so funny where he says he left his all of his legacy money to his wife, and he said, I put it all in a lockbox, and she opened up the lockbox and she went back to him and she's crying. She's like all sad. She said, I thought you left us all your whole net worth. And he's like, I did. She said, all it was just a book. He's like, yeah, that's all my jokes. All you have to do is just read them and you'll make a lot of money. It's like a really funny skit, but the whole point is exactly that. It's like, here's all the jokes, but obviously our whole shtick is, we know it's a lot harder to do on your own, but we're going to give it to you. We're going to give you Dave Chappelle's jokes, but you're not going to be Dave Chappelle when it comes to, being able to implement them. Good luck. We hope you are. We're rooting you on, but we obviously know it does take a little bit of expertise to implement it. And that's why people pay us a premium, because they want it done right and they want it done fast. So we would love to have those conversations. And Ron, thank you so much for having me. And if there's any way to add value to you or Builder Comms or your community or your following, that just please say the word. I would love to, just plug in and add value wherever it makes sense beyond this conversation. It'd be awesome. I love what you're doing,
man. And thank you for taking the time and being on the show today.
My pleasure.
All right, construction champions, another episode in the bag, where if you are not currently asking yourself, what is the domino that I need to push to get my business going in the right direction, you need to rewind and re-listen to the entire episode, because that's what it's about. What Mike does is he fixes the foundation of your business and how it is run and sets you up for success, but it can't all happen at once. I've said it on here many times. Do not try to just eat the entire elephant at once. Like, find those that when he said it's about finding a couple dominoes that we can push over and start getting the momentum, I was like, that is such a great terminology for it, because that's what you have to do. You have to get those wins, not just for yourself, for your team, for everybody around you. It builds confidence. It lets you know that you're headed in the right direction. But when we go out and we're just trying to take on everything all at once, and it's a complete cluster, and it's like, the dominoes are falling on you. It's going the opposite direction. It seems like it's getting worse, because it is, because you're taking chaos and you're literally throwing it in your business instead of just taking stuff that eliminates chaos and slowly, it's not even slowly, like it rapidly happens, but it's going to happen piece by piece by piece by piece instead of all at once. Good luck. See you later. And that's how you have to implement anything into your business, especially the foundation of how it is going to run. So think about that. And I highly recommend go check out Mike's site. Get the free information, read it over. Who knows? You might be the one to do it. They say 1% of people that listen to podcasts actually do something. I always challenge all listeners that we want to be better than that 1%, to get out there, do something, take some form of action from what you heard. There, you just got the playbook. And I'm sure it's a way even smaller fraction than 1% of people that can actually just go do that themselves. But at least you have the playbook. You can start to wrap your mind around what it's actually going to look like. So, construction champions, until next time, be the champion you're meant to be.